The palace gleamed in the pale light of the distant sun, crystalline spires reflecting in prismatic patterns across the central plaza. I adjusted my armor for what felt like the 100th time, aware that every metal plate, every strap, and every insignia I wore seemed foreign in this alien world. Not only was I human among aliens, I was human tasked with the impossible, protecting a princess whose very presence carried centuries of political weight, ritual expectation, and danger I could barely begin to comprehend. I tried to swallow my nerves with a small joke under my breath. Just don't trip on the ceremonial carpet, and maybe you'll survive your first day without making history for the wrong reason. The princess emerged then, her long ears angled slightly backward in what I quickly learned was her version of caution mixed with curiosity. She wore flowing ceremonial garb that shimmered in subtle shifts of color, an armor of diplomacy more than combat. Yet she exuded the aura of someone entirely capable of defending herself. I had heard tales of her ferocity, how she had faced assassins before she could even wield a ceremonial dagger, and yet standing before her, she seemed almost delicate. I reminded myself, appearances were deceiving, very deceiving. The air hummed with faint energy currents, something that felt alive if you paid attention. I had been told this was the palace's nervous system, a complex lattice of bioluminescent conduits that responded to emotion, intention, and physical presence. I shifted nervously, and a subtle ripple traveled across the floor, eliciting a soft, almost musical note that vibrated through my boots. My ears twitched as I realized I might have just caused a minor alarm. Perfect, I muttered. My first contribution, accidental chaos. The princess approached, her long ears flicking toward me, catching the faint resonance in the air. "You are human," she said, her voice soft, but carrying a weight I could feel through the subtle waves of energy. "And you are responsible for my safety?" There was curiosity in her tone, but also that unspoken test. Measure him, see if he falters. I cleared my throat. Yes, mostly alive. Also very keen on not being turned into a ceremonial footnote. She tilted her head slightly, which I took as a minor victory. Then came the shriek, a sudden metallic wail that split the serene hum of the palace. My body reacted before my brain could catch up. From the shadowed corridor, a blade flashed, aimed directly at the princess. My muscles tensed, instincts overriding reason. I lunged forward, throwing my body into the path of the blade, feeling it graze my armor, the force knocking the breath out of me. Pain screamed up my arm, but more pressing was the adrenaline that surged through every vein. I rolled to the side as another blade followed, narrowly missing my head. The princess's eyes widened, ears bristling with alarm and calculation. She had trained for moments like this her entire life, yet her expression held a flicker of something else. Astonishment, maybe even respect. I groaned as I pulled myself upright, shaking out the shock and pain. "Note to self," I muttered under my breath. "Never underestimate ceremonial chaos." Security units arrived in a blur of sleek armor and energy shields, dispatching the assailants with precision. I had never seen alien combat executed with such grace, a ballet of energy and motion that left me both impressed and slightly nauseated. One of the princess's guards extended a hand to me, helping me to steady my legs. "You are reckless," she said in her precise, clipped tone. I winced, rubbing my shoulder. "And yet effective. I'll take it." The princess approached, her long ears now fully upright in a combination of tension and evaluation. "You have saved me," she said carefully, as though tasting the words, testing their weight. "Do you understand what this means?" I shook my head slowly, wincing as I flexed my injured arm. "Depends. Are we talking about hero points, court recognition, or sudden life debt slavery?" I tried for humor, knowing it was a weak attempt, but her lips twitched. A reaction I could swear was a smile. "Life debt," she said, her voice steady now, the words vibrating through the energy field of the room. "Our tradition demands more. You are bound to me now in ways you cannot yet imagine. You will learn, adapt, and honor what you have begun." I blinked. Bound, like in a paperwork sense? Or more, life-risking, Hair-raising sense. Her long ears twitched sharply. Both, and neither. You will see. As the palace settled back into its hum, I realized the enormity of what had just happened. I was human, a solitary soldier from a distant planet, caught in the center of alien politics, mysticism, and danger. I had saved a princess, but in doing so, had entered a bond that would demand loyalty, courage, and perhaps more than I could give. Yet beneath the fear, there was something else. A spark of exhilaration, of purpose, of adventure. Great, I muttered quietly, flexing my shoulder. First day on the job, and I'm already legally, morally, and metaphysically entangled. Perfect start. The princess's gaze softened slightly, a rare flicker of warmth in her disciplined eyes. You will learn, she said simply. And I realized that, for better or worse, I already had. Every instinct, every joke, every misstep had been a step into a world I was now irrevocably a part of. A world where honor, duty, and human unpredictability might just change the course of her life, and mine forever. The corridors of the palace stretched ahead, glowing with latent energy, alive with history, and pulsing with the potential for both danger and discovery. I inhaled sharply, readying myself. Whatever came next, I would face it. Awkward, injured, but strangely exhilarated. And maybe, just maybe, I would survive to tell the story. I woke to the soft glow of alien medical lights, the air humming with the gentle vibration of energy conduits that lined the walls. My body ached in ways I had forgotten existed, and every limb felt like it had been repurposed as some crude instrument of torture. Though I was alive, and more importantly, upright. A pod nearby emitted a low chime, and I squinted, blinking against the iridescent haze that seemed to shift with every blink. Alien medical devices hovered quietly, scanning, adjusting, and sometimes puffing faint clouds of restorative gas that smelled vaguely like roasted nuts. I coughed softly and muttered, well, first day on the job, and already a full-service spa. A presence shifted behind the transparent walls, and I tensed, fully expecting another assassination attempt or a lecture from a tribunal of alien elders. Instead, the princess appeared, walking gracefully over the floor that seemed almost to pulse beneath her feet. Her long ears twitched in ways that conveyed both curiosity and calculation, subtle movements that my human brain struggled to interpret. She wore a simple robe, and yet there was a regal authority in the way she carried herself that made me immediately aware of the weight of her culture's expectations. You are awake, she said, her voice smooth but not unkind, like wind through hollow crystal towers. And you survived the blade. I think, I replied cautiously, testing my voice. Though my shoulder might disagree, it's filing a formal complaint against you, your people, and possibly gravity itself. I offered a weak grin, though my arm throbbed as if reminding me it had nearly been sliced off for comedic effect. Her lips twitched, a subtle acknowledgement of my humor, though her eyes remained focused. You do not yet understand the life debt tradition. It is not merely ceremonial. Your action has bound you in ways that will affect both your life and mine. I exhaled, feeling the gravity of her words seep in. Let me guess. Bound honor, endless paperwork, and probably alien rituals involving things I will mispronounce? She blinked slowly, her gaze fixed, then a faint smile curved her lips. There is complexity to your humor. Perhaps it is a trait of your species, or perhaps it is courage disguised as folly. I chuckled despite the soreness in my chest. Folly feels about right. She gestured and a small orb floated toward me, hovering gently in the air. It emitted a soft, pulsating light. This will assist in your recovery. The energy patterns will stabilize damaged tissue and accelerate regeneration. It also measures your intent, resilience, and adherence to life debt obligations. I stared at it, tilting my head. So it's like a mood ring, but it can also determine if I'm worthy of keeping my head attached? Her ears flicked at that, and I could swear she almost laughed. In a manner of speaking, you will learn quickly that humor, courage, and sincerity are all measurable here. For the next hours, she guided me through the palace's medical and cultural procedures. I floated through low-gravity rehabilitation chambers, dodged energy pulses that corrected my alignment, and practiced basic ceremonial etiquette that involved more floating gestures, subtle ear movements, and complex hand signs than I could easily memorize. Each time I erred, a soft hum vibrated through the floor, alerting both of us, and the princess would quietly correct me. Not a gesture of aggression, she would say gently, nor submission, neutrality with respect. Again. I attempted it and stumbled, nearly toppling an adjacent energy pod. Does the whole palace hum every time I fail? I asked sheepishly. Her ears twitched in a movement I was beginning to understand as amusement. Only when necessary. As the day progressed, I began to grasp the subtle elegance of her world. The palace itself was alive with energy currents, flowing like rivers through walls and floors, responsive to mood, tension, and thought. It was overwhelming at first, but gradually, as I synchronized with the rhythms of the environment, the pain and fear of the previous day receded, replaced by an odd exhilaration. Humor became my anchor, a way to keep my human identity intact while navigating the alien systems. By evening, she brought me to a terrace overlooking the glowing gardens outside the palace. Bioluminescent flora twisted and swirled in the soft breeze, responding to the residual energy currents of the palace. This, she said softly, is what life can be when balance is respected. You will learn to see it, not just survive it. I watched in awe, rubbing my arm absently and tried to joke. So, after nearly getting sliced open, now I get light shows and a lecture on cosmic feng shui. Got it. Totally normal first week. Her ears twitched sharply, and she tilted her head, eyes sparkling faintly. Your resilience. It is unlike others I have seen. Perhaps humans possess qualities our traditions do not yet measure fully. Humor, courage, adaptability. These will serve you well. I swallowed, realizing for the first time that my life debt was not merely a burden, but a path. One that demanded both obedience and ingenuity, discipline and audacity. I had leapt to save her, yes, but in doing so I had opened a door to experiences and responsibilities that defied all logic I had known. And somehow, despite the danger, the pain, and the bewildering strangeness of it all, I felt alive. She studied me in silence for a long moment, the alien light reflecting off her long ears, and I finally dared to ask, so, do I get a manual, or do I just improvise? A faint, approving smile touched her lips. Improvise and survive. You will learn everything else along the way. And in that moment, I realized that surviving this world would require more than strength or wit. It would require heart, daring, and perhaps the beginnings of a bond neither of us yet fully understood. The morning arrived with a soft glow, painting the palace corridors in gradients of teal and silver. I moved cautiously, still adjusting to the rhythms of this alien environment, my body slowly reacclimating to the demands of both gravity and the palace's subtle energy currents. Every step I took produced a faint harmonic resonance in the floor, a gentle reminder that the palace was aware of my presence, measuring, responding, alive. The princess awaited me in the central hall, her long ears angled forward as she scrutinized my posture and expression. She didn't speak immediately. Instead, she allowed the silence to stretch, a test perhaps of patience or focus. Today, she said finally, her voice a soft, precise melody, you will begin understanding not just the life debt, but the social web that surrounds it. Every action, every word carries weight. I nodded, trying to sound confident. Great. Weight. I'm good with that. Heavy on my shoulders, I can carry it. Metaphorically. Also, literally, if it's part of the training. She allowed a small twitch of amusement to pass across her features, but her eyes remained sharp. Humor is an interesting coping mechanism. Do not mistake it for disregard. I winced slightly. Noted. Humorous, not reckless. Got it. Mostly. Our first task was etiquette training, but in a way I could never have anticipated. The palace's halls were filled with invisible currents of energy that responded to emotional states, projecting subtle light patterns on the floors and walls. Misaligned intentions could trigger minor disturbances, objects shifting, lights flickering, even low-level alarms humming in response to perceived aggression or disrespect. My first few attempts at ceremonial bowing or gesture control produced cascading waves of unintended resonance. One delicate step sent a set of hovering energy spheres spinning in a chaotic dance around me, and I had to duck to avoid a minor concussion. The princess watched silently, her expression unreadable at first. Then she tilted her head, and I swear her long ears twitched in amusement. Careful, balance and intent must coincide. Do not let instinct alone govern you. I blinked. Balance and intent, got it. It's like dance class with lasers and telepathy, right? A faint smile touched her lips, and for the first time, her human-like qualities emerged in a small but significant way. Perhaps, but even in dance, mistakes carry consequences. The day continued with a blend of physical and mental training. We moved through rooms where gravity shifted unpredictably, requiring both concentration and improvisation. I learned to navigate corridors that responded to thought patterns, doors that opened only when respect and clarity were projected, and instruments that measured my emotional resonance, subtly adjusting the environment in response. At one point, I misjudged a leap and landed in a containment field, only to be softly levitated to safety by an unseen energy pulse. Remind me, I said, floating slightly, that the human manual never covered survive levitation fields while looking competent. Her long ears twitched sharply, and a soft laugh, almost musical, escaped her. Competence is a matter of perception. Adaptation is what matters. As the hours passed, we moved into combat training, though in ways entirely alien to my prior experience. Energy blades hummed, their fields adjusting to strength, angle, and proximity. I had to learn to move not just physically, but emotionally, calming my thoughts, projecting intent, and trusting instincts while accounting for alien reactions. The princess demonstrated a series of fluid maneuvers, each motion precise, a combination of art and strategy. When it was my turn, I stumbled, misjudged distances, and nearly impaled myself on a training replica. But she intervened with a quiet correction. You hesitate, let instinct guide, but do not surrender your awareness, she instructed, her tone firm yet patient. Fear must not control action. I swallowed hard, nodding. Fear, controlling action, check. Note to self, fear optional, adrenaline mandatory. By the afternoon, exhaustion mixed with exhilaration as I began to understand the palace's rhythm. The princess had guided me beyond mere survival or etiquette. She was teaching me to become a participant in the living environment, to sense currents of energy, to anticipate reactions, to blend courage with subtlety. And through it all, humor remained my lifeline. A whispered joke here, a ridiculous quip there, enough to break tension without disrespect. During a brief pause, she led me to a terrace overlooking the palace's outer gardens. Bioluminescent flora spiraled in slow, hypnotic patterns, their glow reflecting in her eyes. This world, she said softly, responds to all who dwell in it. Those who adapt thrive. Those who falter are corrected. I laughed softly despite my aching muscles. Good to know I'm in the thriving category. Mostly. Probably. Her gaze lingered on me, her long ears tilting slightly forward. You possess resilience and curiosity. Both are unusual traits for one bound by life debt. Most falter under the weight of obligation alone. I shifted, rubbing my arm absently. So, basically, I'm special? That's great. Never had to hear that before. Most people just shoot at me or give me paperwork. Her subtle smile widened. You will find that rules, obligations, and threats are tools. Humor, ingenuity, courage. These are your weapons. Use them wisely. The day waned, the alien sun casting elongated shadows across the terraces, and I realized that surviving the palace required more than physical strength or quick reflexes. It demanded adaptability, presence, and the ability to read both energy and intention. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, my bond with the princess deepened, not merely as protector and ward, but as two beings learning to navigate alien traditions together, discovering trust, and perhaps the beginnings of mutual understanding. As I lay in the recovery chamber that evening, muscles aching but mind alert, I whispered to myself, okay, so far, alive, semi-competent, and somehow in the middle of an alien bonding ritual. Could be worse. Outside, the palace pulsed softly, aware of every heartbeat, every thought. And somewhere in that living architecture, I felt it, a faint, thrilling sense that this journey, dangerous as it was only just beginning. The palace was quieter that morning, though not silent. The energy currents that wove through the floors and walls pulsed with subtle anticipation, as if sensing the weight of events to come. I moved through the corridors, still aching from the previous day's lessons, muscles rebelling but mind alert. The princess was waiting at the central training hall, her long ears tilted forward, scanning the space as if calculating the odds of every possible scenario. She didn't need to say a word. The subtle shift in the energy currents made it clear that today's exercises would test more than skill. They would test intuition, courage, and composure under pressure. Today, she said finally, voice calm yet commanding, we explore movement in dynamic conditions, not just your own, but of the environment and its response to intent. You will act, react, and anticipate simultaneously. This is the next stage of your training. I swallowed and nodded, trying to hide the wince from my sore joints. Dynamic conditions, got it. You mean like an obstacle course, but with floating spikes, unpredictable lighting, and possibly lasers that shoot sarcasm? I forced a grin, hoping she would find some humor in my exaggeration. Her lips curved slightly, though her gaze remained sharp. Sarcasm is noted. Humor can be useful if it does not undermine attention. The first exercise involved navigating a corridor where gravity shifted in patterns, sometimes subtly, sometimes violently. I had to leap, twist, and hold on to energy rails that hummed under the slightest pressure. The princess demonstrated first, moving with an elegance that made my human form feel clumsy by comparison. Each movement was precise, calculated, yet fluid, an intricate dance I had no chance of replicating on instinct alone. When my turn came, I stumbled immediately, nearly sending myself crashing into a levitation field that could have scrambled my neural sensors if misused. Okay, I muttered under my breath. Think like a human, move like an alien. Easier said than done. She observed silently, her long ears flicking slightly as if marking each mistake, each hesitation. Do not fight the currents, she instructed. Flow with them. Predict them. Your own intentions must harmonize with the palace. I nodded, though internally I was questioning my sanity. As I began again, moving cautiously, I realized the subtlety of her teaching. It wasn't just about physical agility, it was about awareness, about tuning into the living architecture around us. The floor shimmered differently as I focused. The energy rails responded more predictably, and I started to feel a rhythm I could follow, however fragile it was. After several exhausting rounds, she introduced the combat simulation. Energy blades materialized from the walls and ceiling, responding to both movement and intent. I had to anticipate trajectories, adjust force, and maintain balance in an environment that seemed to live and breathe with us. On my first attempt, I misjudged a swing and barely avoided a direct strike, prompting a soft vibration in the floor that communicated both warning and amusement. Precision, she said quietly, is not a matter of speed alone. Humor remained my anchor. Noted. Precision, grace, and possibly a miracle to survive. I forced a small laugh, wincing as I twisted to dodge another blade. She inclined her head, a gesture I was slowly learning signaled a rare acknowledgement of effort. By midday, exhaustion and adrenaline mixed, pushing me to a strange, heightened awareness. We moved into an external training ground, a terrace overlooking floating gardens that shimmered with bioluminescence. The energy currents here were more intense, interacting with both of us and subtly affecting the terrain. Plants adjusted their luminescence, creating shadows and highlights that shifted unpredictably, testing not just reflexes but anticipation. Adapt, she said, stepping into the field. The world will not wait for hesitation. I followed, weaving between glowing vines and levitating rocks, learning to trust instinct and observation over brute force. Several times I nearly stumbled, but each recovery taught me more than any lecture could. Humor, again, was my tool, muttering sarcastic encouragement to myself, commenting on the floating foliage as if it were a co-conspirator in my survival. She allowed the commentary, perhaps as a subtle test of composure under stress. As the sun set over the alien horizon, casting elongated prisms of light across the terrace, we paused. I leaned against a railing, panting and trembling from exertion, while the princess watched silently, her long ears flicking with alertness, even in repose. "You improve," she said finally. "Not as quickly as some, but you learn. Your human qualities, adaptability, humor, audacity, serve you well in ways others cannot understand." I managed a shaky grin. "So basically, being stubbornly alive, loud and sarcastic is my superpower?" Noted. "Could have skipped the armor and just brought charm, huh?" She allowed herself a faint, rare smile. "Perhaps, but survival is more than charm. It is awareness, courage, and trust. You begin to understand this, slowly." I nodded, glancing out over the gardens, feeling the pulse of the palace in my veins. Each lesson, each stumble, each burst of human folly carried me further into this alien world, weaving me into its currents. And despite the danger, the pain, the constant pressure to adapt, a thrill ran through me, the realization that I was not just surviving, but beginning to belong, however tenuously, in a place that had once seemed utterly impossible to navigate. The princess's gaze lingered on me as the light faded, long ears flicking with subtle curiosity. "Tomorrow," she said softly, "we will test your integration further. Not merely your skill, but your judgment, your patience, your capacity to understand this world and your place in it." I exhaled, muscles trembling, and muttered under my breath, "Great. Another day of dancing with lasers and living architecture. Can't wait." And somehow, despite it all, I couldn't stop a small, genuine grin from spreading across my face. I was human, yes, vulnerable, and utterly out of place, but I was beginning to learn how to survive here, and perhaps, just perhaps, how to thrive. The morning light seeped through the palace's translucent walls in shifting shades of green and gold, brushing the corridors with a warmth that felt almost alive. I moved carefully, my muscles still sore from the previous days of relentless training, each step measured to avoid disrupting the subtle energy currents that hummed beneath the surface. The princess awaited me in the central hall, standing with her long ears angled forward in that inscrutable way that made me simultaneously nervous and oddly reassured. She didn't smile, but there was a faint glimmer in her eyes that suggested curiosity and expectation rather than judgment. "Today," she said, her voice smooth and precise, "we focus on the interconnectedness of action and consequence, not merely in combat or etiquette, but in perception, choice, and trust." I blinked. Connectedness of action and consequence. Got it. So basically, if I sneeze, I could trigger an intergalactic incident? Noted. Her long ears twitched slightly, a subtle acknowledgement of my humor, though her gaze remained serious. "Do not underestimate the subtlety of cause and effect. Your life debt is not a chain, but a web. One misstep affects more than you realize." The first exercise involved navigating a chamber filled with suspended energy spheres that reacted to emotion, intention, and focus. Each sphere floated in place until it sensed even the slightest misalignment, then darted unpredictably. My first attempt was disastrous. I lunged awkwardly, colliding with three spheres in rapid succession, sending them spinning in chaotic arcs. One brushed my shoulder, delivering a minor shock that left me staggering and muttering under my breath. "Precision and intent," the princess instructed, her voice calm but firm. "You must project confidence, not desperation. Do you understand?" "Yes," I gasped, trying to regain composure. "Confidence. Got it. Project confidence, not panic. Easy, mostly. She allowed a faint curve of amusement on her lips, a rare human-like expression in her otherwise controlled demeanor. Your humor is noted. Use it wisely. I took a deep breath and tried again. This time I focused not on dodging, but on moving with the currents, letting the spheres anticipate my path rather than forcing my will against them. Slowly, carefully, I began to weave through the chamber, almost synchronized with the floating orbs. By the end of the exercise, I had managed to navigate without incident, a small but significant victory. Improvement, she said quietly, though subtle. You learn not just with your body, but with your perception. Remember this lesson. It will serve you more than skill alone. Next came a series of combat drills designed to integrate the palace's living architecture into defense strategies. Energy blades materialized unpredictably, walls shifted in response to movement, and platforms floated intermittently in midair. I had to learn not just to react, but to anticipate, blending human intuition with alien environmental cues. My first attempts were clumsy. I stumbled, misjudged distances, and nearly fell off several floating platforms. Awareness, the princess instructed. You must understand the environment as a partner, not an obstacle. I muttered under my breath. Partner? Right. Sure, no problem. Just make friends with sentient gravity. Got it. She allowed herself a brief, almost imperceptible smile. Humor may ease tension, but focus must remain. By afternoon, exhaustion mingled with exhilaration. I had begun to sense the palace not merely as a place, but as a responsive entity, a living partner in training. Each movement, each choice carried consequences, subtle but real. The princess observed, corrected, and guided, her presence both a challenge and a reassurance. Her long ears twitched with every minor success or misstep, a silent measure of my progress. During a short break, she led me to a terrace overlooking bioluminescent gardens that shimmered like liquid starlight. The air was filled with a faint, calming vibration, and the plants swayed in patterns that responded to energy currents in ways I could only begin to understand. This, she said softly, is balance. To survive here, you must learn to sense it, respect it, and sometimes bend it subtly in your favor. I leaned against the railing, panting and sweaty, and said, so basically, survival here is like dancing on a tightrope over a pit of laser-shooting, self-aware flowers. Sounds totally normal. Her ears twitched sharply, and a soft laugh escaped her lips, musical and light. You possess courage, humor. These are your tools. Do not underestimate them. The remainder of the day was devoted to combining lessons, perception, balance, and combat integrated into a single flowing exercise. I stumbled often, laughed nervously at my errors, and occasionally shouted in surprise when energy blades or floating platforms reacted unpredictably. Each recovery taught me more than the last, slowly building confidence, resilience, and understanding. By evening, my body ached, but my mind was alert. The princess stood beside me, observing the subtle shifts of the palace as I navigated a final sequence. You are learning not just to survive, but to participate, she said. This is the next stage. Your life debt is not merely obligation. It is engagement, responsibility, and understanding. I exhaled, muscles trembling, but a small, genuine smile spreading across my face. Engagement, responsibility, understanding, got it. Also mildly terrifying, but mostly fun. She inclined her head slightly, a rare gesture of approval. Tomorrow we advance further. You will face challenges that test not just skill, but judgment and adaptability. Remember, survival is as much a matter of perception as action. As I rested in the medical chambers that night, feeling the lingering thrum of the palace beneath my skin, I realized something profound. I was no longer merely a human soldier out of place. I was a participant, learning to blend wit, courage, and observation in a world utterly alien, yet beginning to feel almost familiar. The day began with a subtle hum vibrating through the palace walls, a resonance that I had learned to feel more than hear. It was a reminder that the living architecture was always aware, always observing and perhaps even judging. I stretched cautiously, every muscle still complaining from the previous day's exercises, while the princess waited in the central hall. Her long ears twitched forward, alert and curious, the faintest hint of amusement in her gaze. She didn't speak immediately. Instead, she allowed me a moment to steel myself, a silent acknowledgement that the upcoming trials would demand more than skill. They would require instinct, adaptability, and trust in ways I had not yet fully grasped. Today, she said at last, her voice low and precise, we move into scenarios that simulate unpredictability, a test of your integration with both the environment and your own instincts. Mistakes may carry consequence, but so does hesitation. Humor may remain your ally, but do not let it shield you from awareness. I nodded, forcing a grin. Unpredictability, check. Consequences, noted. And humor, well, that's my only defense, so I guess I'm fully equipped. The first challenge took place in the Hall of Shifting Gravity, a vast chamber where gravitational fields change without warning. I had to move quickly, sometimes clinging to energy rails, other times leaping across floating platforms that responded to intent and balance. My first attempt was messy. An awkward lunge sent a hovering sphere spinning dangerously close, and I barely avoided a minor concussion. Flow with the currents, the princess instructed, stepping past me with effortless grace. Do not resist them. Anticipate, predict, harmonize. I muttered under my breath, harmonize, right? Like singing karaoke with a laser sword. Easy. Her long ears flicked sharply, a subtle acknowledgement of my humor, but her eyes remained focused. I took a deep breath and attempted again, this time moving not against the chamber, but in tandem with its shifts. Slowly I began to feel the rhythm, the way gravity pulsed in microcurrents, how platforms responded to intention, and how the spheres adjusted to energy projections. For the first time, I moved through the hall with a semblance of fluidity, surviving minor collisions, but learning from each misstep. Next came the combat simulation, which combined energy blades, shifting terrain, and responsive environmental hazards. I had to dodge, strike, and maneuver while simultaneously reading the palace's subtle cues. A swing of an energy blade triggered a cascade of floating platforms, which in turn shifted my landing point, requiring split-second recalculations. My body moved on instinct, my mind racing to anticipate consequences, and my humor acting as a fragile shield against panic. Your awareness is improving, the princess said quietly as I narrowly avoided a strike, landing in a precarious position on a levitating platform. But precision must accompany intuition. Your intentions must guide your actions, not desperation. Yes, precision and intuition, I panted. Got it. Basically, survive, don't panic, and maybe look good doing it. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched her lips. Appearance matters little. Control matters everything. By midday, exhaustion mingled with exhilaration. We moved into exercises that required not just physical skill, but understanding of alien etiquette. The palace's living architecture responded to emotional resonance, projecting light patterns, adjusting floor angles, and even subtly shifting air currents to signal disapproval or approval. A misstep could send a floating barrier careening or trigger a mild but disorienting shock. My early attempts were disastrous, sending beams of light swirling chaotically and narrowly avoiding collisions with hovering instruments. Intent and clarity, she reminded me, her voice calm yet firm. Do not act for show or fear. Act because your awareness dictates the path. I sighed, trying to balance my human instinct to overthink with the alien requirement of precision. Right, awareness over panic, noted, though panic still feels very persuasive. Her long ears twitched sharply, a subtle acknowledgement that my humor was tolerated, but my comprehension was the focus. The final exercise took place in the Terrace of Reflection, a floating platform overlooking a vast expanse of bioluminescent gardens. The platform responded to both thought and emotion, subtly tilting and shifting to test balance, judgment, and patience. I had to navigate its movements while maintaining composure, projecting confidence and calm, and reacting to sudden changes in terrain. My first several attempts ended with stumbles, near collisions with energy spheres, and muttered jokes to maintain morale. "You are learning," she observed quietly, stepping onto the platform with effortless grace. "Patience, observation, and adaptation will save you more than strength alone. Humor can ease tension, but do not let it distract from awareness." I nodded, taking a deep breath. Patience, observation, adaptation, and maybe sarcastic commentary as a coping mechanism. Got it. As the sun dipped below the alien horizon, casting elongated shadows across the terrace, I realized something profound. Each challenge, each stumble, and each laugh at my own clumsiness was weaving me deeper into this alien world. I was no longer merely surviving. I was beginning to anticipate, to understand, and to integrate with the palace and its living energy. The princess's gaze lingered on me, her long ears tilted in subtle appraisal. "Tomorrow we will push further. You will face trials that test your judgment under unpredictability. Continue to adapt. Continue to survive. Continue to learn." I exhaled, muscles trembling but mind alert, and muttered under my breath, "Adapt, survive, learn. Repeat until human miracle occurs." Got it. And as the palace hummed softly around me, I realized that my journey was no longer a mere obligation of life debt. It was a path of discovery, resilience, and connection, one that demanded courage, humor, and the slow forging of trust between human and alien alike. The morning air in the palace was unusually crisp, carrying with it the faint scent of ionized flora from the hanging gardens that spiraled around the upper terraces. I stretched carefully, feeling the lingering soreness in muscles I hadn't realized could ache in quite that way. The princess waited in the central hall, her posture poised, long ears twitching with subtle attention. There was a calm intensity in her eyes, the kind that made even the most ordinary hall feel like a stage for destiny. She didn't speak immediately, letting me gather myself, though I could feel her gaze weighing on me, a reminder that today would demand more than routine skill. "Today," she said finally, voice low but commanding, "we will explore unpredictability and improvisation in tandem. Your environment will challenge not just your reflexes, but your judgment, creativity, and emotional resilience. Humor is permitted, though it must never undermine awareness." I exhaled, trying to steady my racing thoughts. Unpredictability, improvisation, check. Creativity and resilience, sure. And humor, well, I'm fully stocked there. Hope that counts as a weapon. Her long ears flicked slightly, an acknowledgement I had come to recognize as faint approval. "Your wit may serve, but do not rely on it alone." The first exercise involved navigating a chamber filled with shifting energy conduits that reacted to both touch and intent. Each movement triggered subtle changes in lighting, temperature, and gravity, forcing me to adapt constantly. My first attempt was clumsy. One misstep sent a conduit veering dangerously close, delivering a shock that left me staggering and muttering. Well, that escalated quickly. "Focus on anticipation, not reaction," she instructed. "You must feel the currents, not fight them." I took a deep breath, closing my eyes briefly to sense the subtle vibrations of the chamber. Moving with deliberate intent, I began to weave through the conduits, avoiding shocks, anticipating shifts, and gradually gaining a rhythm. Each successful dodge brought a flicker of approval from her eyes, though her expression remained calm, almost unreadable. Next came a combat simulation layered over the shifting conduits. Energy blades erupted unpredictably from walls, floors, and ceiling, responding to movement and projected intent. Floating platforms appeared intermittently, requiring leaps, twists, and mid-air recalculations. My first few attempts were disastrous. Stumbles, near misses, and muttered jokes filled the room as I struggled to harmonize instinct with adaptation. "You are improving," she observed quietly as I narrowly avoided a strike. "But your awareness must lead, not your fear." Yes, awareness leading, fear trailing. Got it. Though fear does enjoy the occasional cameo, I muttered under my breath, ducking another energy arc. Her ears twitched sharply, and for the first time I thought I detected a faint, almost imperceptible smile. "Humor may ease tension, but comprehension must guide action. By midday, exhaustion mingled with exhilaration. The palace's living architecture was no longer a mere obstacle. It was an active participant in training. Walls shifted subtly to encourage movement. Platforms adjusted their position in response to energy projection, and light patterns guided or misled, depending on my focus. The princess moved alongside me, demonstrating sequences with effortless grace, her presence both a challenge and a reassurance. During a brief rest, she led me to an observation terrace overlooking the bioluminescent gardens. The air shimmered faintly with the palace's ambient energy, and the plants responded subtly to our presence. Adaptation is not just survival, she said softly, her voice almost blending with the hum of the terrace. It is understanding context, predicting consequence, and maintaining composure amidst uncertainty. I leaned against the railing, panting and sweaty. So, survive, anticipate, adapt, and look fabulous while doing it. Got it. Easy checklist. Her long ears flicked with amusement, and for a moment the sharpness in her gaze softened. Appearance is secondary, control and perception are primary, but humor may make the journey bearable. The final exercise of the day combined perception, balance, and combat into a single flowing sequence. The palace itself became a dynamic, reactive partner, shifting with intention, creating hazards and opportunities that tested judgment, creativity, and instinct. My movements grew more fluid, less hesitant, as I began to trust not just my body, but my understanding of the living environment. Each misstep was a lesson. Each success, however small, was a fragile victory. By evening, sweat-drenched and exhausted, I paused on a floating platform that hummed in resonance with my heartbeat. The princess observed silently, her long ears angled forward in subtle appraisal. Tomorrow, she said, we advance further. Your integration will be tested. You will face scenarios demanding rapid decision-making, creative improvisation, and emotional control. Adaptation is your weapon. I exhaled, muscles trembling, but a small, genuine grin spreading across my face. Adaptation, improvisation, emotional control. Got it. Hopefully my human stubbornness counts as an extra bonus. And as the palace vibrated softly around us, alive and watchful, I realized that the life debt that had drawn me here had become something more than obligation. It was a path of discovery, resilience, and connection, teaching me how to navigate an alien world with wit, courage, and a growing understanding of trust between human and alien alike. The palace was unusually still that morning. The usual hum of energy flows dampened into a gentle resonance that felt like a deep breath. I stood in the central hall, feeling a strange combination of exhaustion and anticipation, muscles taut from the past day's relentless exercises, yet my mind surprisingly clear. The princess appeared beside me, her long ears angled forward, the faintest curve of a smile brushing her lips. Today was not about tests or drills. It was about culmination, the integration of every lesson, every stumble, every moment of humor that had kept me sane and focused in this alien world. Today, she said softly, her voice a calm current in the charged air, you face the ultimate sequence. It is not just a test of skill, but judgment, empathy, and synthesis. You will encounter unpredictability, danger, and choice. Remember what you have learned. Adaptation, observation, and awareness guide survival, while courage and wit sustain it. I swallowed hard, feeling my heart race. Right. Adaptation, observation, awareness, courage, wit. Got it. No pressure. Her ears twitched slightly, a subtle acknowledgement of my humor, but her eyes held that familiar intensity, measuring not just my readiness, but my growth. The first challenge was a complex simulation that combined shifting gravity, reactive energy barriers, and moving platforms, all layered with environmental hazards that mimicked unpredictable battlefield conditions. The palace itself seemed to breathe, anticipating my moves, testing my instincts, and demanding both precision and adaptability. I moved cautiously at first, each step measured, watching the subtle cues in the shifting light and floor vibrations. My body reacted with instinct honed from days of practice, and I began to sense the rhythm of the palace rather than resist it. Energy barriers hummed as I passed, platforms floated and tilted in harmony with my weight, and for the first time, I felt not like an intruder, but a participant. Halfway through the sequence, a new challenge emerged: holographic decoys that mimicked the princess's form and behavior, designed to confuse and mislead. My first reactions were hesitant. I lunged at the nearest figure, only to realize it was a projection. A surge of irritation nearly made me curse aloud, but then I caught myself. This was exactly the kind of test she had prepared me for: to trust perception and judgment over fear and impulse. I adjusted, observing subtle differences in energy signature, stance, and aura, and moved through the decoys with increasing confidence. "Good," the princess's voice echoed from above, calm but approving. "You are beginning to discern essence from illusion. Observation is now guided by understanding, not fear." I muttered under my breath. Observation guided by understanding. Sounds like a fortune cookie, but okay, I'll take it. The next stage involved confrontation with simulated threats, a combination of aggressive drones, reactive barriers, and environmental hazards that required rapid decision-making. Each encounter demanded split-second calculation, blending instinct, adaptation, and strategy. I stumbled several times, misjudging a platform's tilt or underestimating a drone's trajectory, but each recovery reinforced my growing confidence. The humor I injected, quips whispered to myself, exaggerated gestures to distract or calm my nerves, kept tension from becoming paralysis. After what felt like hours, the final segment presented itself. A simulated crisis requiring not only physical skill, but empathy and emotional intelligence. A holographic projection of the princess appeared in jeopardy, and I had to navigate the entire reactive environment to reach her safely while neutralizing threats in real time. My previous day's lessons, precision, patience, awareness, and humor, combined into a flowing response. I anticipated hazards, moved fluidly with the palace's energy, and reached the projection without harm. The simulation ended, and the palace's hum shifted to a resonant, approving tone. I exhaled deeply, muscles trembling, sweat mingling with exhilaration. The princess stepped onto the platform beside me, long ears tilted in measured approval. "You have integrated skill, perception, and judgment," she said. "Your journey has transformed you. Courage alone does not suffice. Understanding, adaptation, and balance elevate it. You are no longer merely a human soldier. You are an ally, a participant, and a protector in this world." I exhaled, the tension dissolving, and allowed myself a small, wry smile. "So, essentially, I'm officially part of the palace, without getting impaled. Sounds like a win." Her lips curved slightly, a rare and genuine smile, the faintest laughter in her tone. "Humor remains a tool, and courage now has context. You have grown, and that growth honors the life debt, not just through action, but through understanding." As the sun set beyond the bioluminescent gardens, the palace bathed in soft, shifting light, I felt a profound sense of completion. The life debt that had brought me here was no longer merely an obligation. It had become a path of learning, trust, and connection. I had navigated danger, uncertainty, and alien tradition, emerging not only alive, but transformed. The princess regarded me with a quiet, steady gaze, one that no longer measured me solely as a human soldier, but as a partner, a protector, and a presence intertwined with her world. I realized then that the palace itself had become a reflection of my journey, unpredictable, alive, and challenging, yet ultimately guiding me toward balance. Humor had kept me human, courage had kept me moving, and adaptation had made me strong. And standing there, amidst the living architecture, I understood something essential. Survival was no longer enough. Connection, trust, and understanding were the true markers of growth. The princess extended her hand slightly, a gesture of acknowledgement, and I met it, feeling the subtle energy pulse beneath her fingers. We stood together, silent but in sync, aware that the trials had ended. But the journey, our journey, was only beginning. The world outside remained unpredictable and dangerous, Yet for the first time, I felt prepared to meet it, not merely as a soldier, but as someone who had learned to navigate a universe that demanded courage, wit, and the slow, steady forging of trust between human and alien alike.